Hello, this is a kit review and build instructions for a Plico all clear screw top build. That means the build will have screw heads in the top of the build when it's done. This is everything that should come with the kit. There's 2 plates. These are 0.22 acrylic. Six wire guides. Two base plates. Hey. Two sets of gear channels. These ones have the wire channel. Yours might not. Feet. 10 of these screws and matching nuts. These are optional, but you might have 20 or up to 20 spacers. These can be used in place of these wire guides on certain levels. And 1 finger wheel. They should certainly look a lot cleaner when they get to you. These are just before they're being packaged up. So, the build for these, build starts with the base or the plates, and we want the plates top down. So, your top, it should always look like this. The hinge should be on the left side. If you're having trouble discerning or it's different, there should be wear marks from where there was a test fit of the crush nut, and that'll be on the bottom. So, starting with the plate on the bottom, we're going to put screws in facing up. I'm sorry. I forgot about this little guy. This is 1 screw with a crush nut. It's this little ring here. 3 spacers. And then a nut for itself. That will also be required. So, that is the axle nut. That'll go right here, or axle screw. So we're putting 5 in each side of the plates, not on the axle. There are better ways of doing this. Come on, there we go. There we go. And 5 more in the other. Last one. There we go. So that's the plate set up. Next level is these up here weren't in frame. These are your friction plates. Should have 2 of these. 2 sets, rather. fit together like this. And these are going to be put, the disc side is going to be put opposite the hinge side. So circle on this side, now we want it on this side. And then the matching pairs on the opposite side. So same level here. That's your friction plate. And I should have done this first. We didn't. Now we'll do it live. Let's just keep going here. I'm going to take off from the axle screw the nut and the three spacers. And I've left on the crush nut. And we want this to be on the inside of the hinge on the plate level. That crush nut is between the screw and the .22 plate. And we'll be putting this back on through the axle. There we go. So now we're ready for our finger wheel. And the finger wheel should be fitted to the nut that came with the axle. So it should pressure fit. And just go ahead and screw that on. There we go. And we can just go ahead and drop the three spacers on right now. Bingo. So now we're going to do the gear support. And those are the ones that look like this. They're slightly wider on this inside angle. And as I stated, you might have a set with a wire channel. This is just going to depend on the open side is going to go on the side that you want the wire to come out of. So remember, we have this flipped right now. So if you want the wire to come out the right side, you'd put the open one on the left side. So let's do that. Very nice. And the other side, the closed side, the opposite. And there we go. Now we're ready for our wire supports, or wire guides. Your screws should be fitted for the amount of wire guides that you have. However, know that you can use the spacers if you want an open top or open side build, kind of an exposed build. You can use the spacers in place just to have it kind of be open on the side. But for the first layer, you will definitely want to use a proper wire guide. These edges hold the gear finger wheel in place. So we're not going to use the spacers in this example. You can just plop them on each mount point. But the first one is going to be a proper wire guide, because that kind of keeps the finger wheel captive. This is the point where you would put on 2 spacers on each of these support wheels or support areas. But we're going to use the wire guides for the sake of brevity. we go. So all of our wire guides in place. And last is the bottom plate. And the bottom plate is also going to be opposite side of where the hinge was. So on this one, the plate hinge, the plate ball was on the left side over here. So now we're going to put it on the bottom plate on the right side. We're kind of alternating these hinge points, and that's where the strength comes from. And then regular flat plate right there. That's how you assemble it. At this point, you would probably want to, well, you got to flip it over. And if you put some slight, I'm pushing down on the bottom, down on the plate, and up on the, or pushing this way on this top level here, this back plate, and then pushing that way on the bottom plate in order to keep some friction going here. And still not enough for some of these screws. But once you get it stood up, it should be pretty easy to run some of these nuts through. There we go. And hold on just a moment. And that is all the screws tightened. Make sure you tighten them enough that they're very snug. The .22 plate doesn't give a lot of friction, or doesn't give a lot of movement, but just make sure they're tight, otherwise it'll feel a little off. Here, note this. See how it doesn't close completely? The nuts are actually so close together that they can bind against each other, so we want those to be parallel. Excuse me a moment. There we go. I'm just rotating the screws. They're already tight, so when I rotate the screws, the nuts turn. So I've turned those nuts so they're not as close together, or not touching against each other. And there you can see, and we've got our wire channel in there. And that's pretty much how you build it. That's it. You might also have received ribbon cable. The ribbon cable is kind of optional. Most people want the rainbow ribbon cable, but I've got gray. So you can see that that cable needs to be cut in sets of 3 or 4. And then stood vertically to allow the hinge to pivot. But now you can get to wiring.